A couple of people, hello and welcome to those of you watching on YouTube, by the way. A couple of people saying here live that they can't hear anything. You'll just have to leave and rejoin. And as I say that, I realize I always say that out loud to people that can't hear me. So I just typed it in the chat for them. So today we're looking at the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week for 2021, which is well-being and nature. I've been a little bit cheeky and I've used the theme of well-being and nature to shoehorn some of the topics that I know I've been speaking to a lot of you about individually anyway, because there are a few topics where it's really important at the moment that we try and take our own responsibility for the little things that we can do. There's so much freedom being taken away from us at the moment. So a little bit of that power that we're able to bring back by doing a few well-being related things of our choice can be really useful. And those of you that have been to my other sessions recently will know I'm doing a lot around the theme of this quote. I keep thinking of trying to find a better one or a new one, but nothing relates to this time better than this for me at the moment. We get into routines that make us feel safe. Routines allow us to get habits and good habits in our life. The problem is a lot of us have lost our routines, or our routines are changing all the time at the moment. And that sends our brain and our body into this fear state, this fight or flight reaction. And yes, it will be good for us to get a bit more routine back into our lives, and we'll focus a bit on that in this session. But what we'll also need to understand is that it's the new things that we're going to do at the moment that I think will bring us the most well-being. Remember, there's so little novelty in our lives at the moment. I'm sitting in the same bedroom I've been sat in for over a year. So anything that I can do that's new is useful for my brain, but also because the world has changed, I have to change. And I've said this to a few organizations and a few groups before recently is, did your life go exactly as you have expected it to up to this point? Probably not. You were probably thrown some challenges and you had to do some creative things to get past those challenges. And you were probably thrown some opportunities and you had to change and adapt to take advantage of those opportunities. So it's important that we realize that our creativity is really vital for us at the moment. And a lot of what we do in nature actually is about creativity. It's about engaging our brain in the day-to-day life in a slightly different way. So I've made a list of some of the things that I know nature can do for me and my mental health and my well-being. But I'd love to hear from you guys, and please do type your answers out in the chat. What does time in nature do for you and your well-being? What do you find is the most useful thing you get out of spending time in the natural world? I realize that as I'm saying this, there's probably very few of you out in the natural world right now. By the nature of these kind of presentations, you're tied to your desks and your laptops at the moment. So think to those times that you have been able to get outside. What's it done for you? This is saying appreciation for the world around us. Yeah, important. Appreciation for the things that are kind of a bit bigger than us. Yeah. Grounding as well. I stop and take time to notice things that I might not usually. This is a big part of well-being. If I can get my brain into that state where I'm seeing new stuff and I'm noticing new stuff, that's really creative and very vital for my brain's health. And that's really important. Melissa saying connecting with nature. Clara saying, I feel I can breathe. Yeah, really good for us connecting with our bodies as well. I've put here improve my physical health, but I think you've said it a bit better there, Clara, just connecting with myself physically, being able to be a bit more in tune with myself. It allows me time to process thoughts and events that have happened in the week. Yeah, a little bit of space, I think Natalie's saying there. Fresh air and feeling separate from the day-to-day stresses. Quite literally getting out of this place where all of my stress seems to be at the moment is beautiful. I took a little bit of a coffee break and went out at lunchtime today. I don't often get an opportunity to do that, but what that gave me is a bit of this perspective. I started spotting stuff in the world that I wouldn't normally see. Someone saying here, brings me joy to see new life, such as baby ducks. Yeah, and have some time to rebalance. Andy uses going into nature for creative inspiration. Fantastic. There is constantly new stuff for us to recognize outside. And Katie's put an important one here. Seeing the changing seasons is lovely. I actually used the changing seasons as a big part of my well-being for the start of this year. Looking at the idea that every day we get a few more minutes of daylight in the morning and a few more minutes of daylight towards the end of the day started to make me feel a bit more positive of our slow creep out of that dark, locked down winter. And Joanne says, peace and quiet, rejuvenating, watching and photographing wildlife. Fantastic. We'll go into some of these in a bit more detail in a minute, but I find them a really useful thing to discuss because we often take for granted the things that we get for free, well-being wise, in the world. We start thinking, oh, I need to cram an hour of this or an hour of yoga or an hour of mindfulness into my day. There are some things that we can do just as part of our normal day that can help us get some of these well-being effects. And the reason that we need these so much at the moment is lockdown's done some things to us. Living like we have been has made staying positive really, really difficult. It's really natural if you're having a lot more negative thoughts at the moment. You find yourself focusing on the bad side of things. The world has become more bad and more difficult. So it's really natural for our brains to go there as they try and make sense of what's going on. And if we're spending less time outside in nature, we're missing out on a lot of those kind of well-being aspects, but also the social aspects. Very often my time in nature was with other people, either exercising, walking, seeing friends and stuff like that. Few more people adding some stuff to the chat, so thank you. Keep them coming. Sandra saying, I feel liberated. Yeah, how many of us feel like a lot of our liberty has been taken away from us at the moment? Or, we're having to squash our liberties down to something a little bit smaller in order to stay safe. So even just getting out in nature can help us release some of that negative trapped feeling that we might be getting. David says stress relief by running in different locations, taking in the scenery. Beautiful. Keith said, is it possible to get a copy of the slides? Yeah, I'll share a copy of the slides at the end, no problem. And someone else is saying, finding time to walk in the countryside near where I live each day. So yes, there's nature in that person's response, but beautifully, there's also routine. If my brain and my body knows I'm going to get this bit of nature every single day, it starts to expect it. And then my mind can relax a bit more. I can experience a lot less anxiety if my brain knows what's coming next. Fantastic. And a lot of this is just about making space for our mental health, space for our mind to heal. I've talked a lot about this over the last few months of these sessions. What we're really missing out on, as well as our kind of perspective and freedom, is that ability to tune in with ourselves and check in with what our needs are. I've found it so much recently that with the kind of relaxation of boundaries and rules going on, I found it really, really difficult to make sure that I'm paying attention to what my needs and wants are at the moment. And I need that. I think it's really, really, really important that we find this space to tune in with ourselves. So many of us are giving a lot of our attention externally, trying to help other people, support our friends and our family members. But what about me? John said, I was flying a model glider soaring with a hawk in a thermal yesterday, a time away from reality. Oh, that sounds a bit like a haiku. That's beautiful, John. Yeah. Just being able to find some time to do something for me, but something connected to nature. I haven't thought of model gliders. I might look them up after this. That's a really good reason and a good excuse to get out into some nature. Beautiful. So what can we do to find this space for our mental well-being? And I've tied this in before to physical health. We as a global society, we have much more respect and attention paid to physical health, keeping this kind of physical body going. But our mental health is massively tied to it. And the example I always use, if I went to the doctor and said I had a bad arm, they'd put it in a sling for me, or they'd ask me to rest it. They wouldn't ask me to keep on pushing and yeah, just keep using it and it might get better. Well, why do we do that with our mental health? When my mental health is poor, I need to rest my mind. I need to find space for my mind to heal. I don't just keep on pushing it, working in front of a screen for 10 or 12 hours a day and expecting it to magically get better on its own. I need space. So there are a few things we can do. First of all, having a good routine to set myself up in a positive frame of mind first thing in the morning. So that basically the first thing I'm doing in the morning is not attending to other people's needs. Now, some of the parents of very young children will disagree with me on this, and unfortunately, sometimes those rules don't apply. But all right, let's take, for instance, my mobile phones. If I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is check my mobile phone, the first thing I'm doing is engaging myself in what other people want and need from me. I'm not paying attention to my life. So if I can find some space first thing in the morning, especially if I can get outside first thing in the morning, I can give that attention and kindness to myself. And then I might, in that time, find that some negative thoughts come up. And this is the thing, and this is why so many of us are avoiding our thoughts at the moment. It's because there's negative ones tied up in that. So we distract ourselves with endless box sets on TV or whatever it might be. I'm not preaching from the pulpit here. I do the same. But sometimes I just need that little check-in with myself. Notice what those negative thoughts and feelings are, and then find a way of venting them, of sharing them, because if I express them, then I can do something about it. So yeah, if I can vent my worries, my stresses and anxiety, I can move forwards rather than just being in this downward spiral of a constantly repeating thought process. Alex has put in the chat here, a random day or night in nature can be even better than something planned. Last week I saw news of a meteor shower visible at night, travelled to the coast, watched this in the wild clear sky, fished at first light and had a few hours sleep on the rocks after. Just hearing wild birds in the sea. Random, yes, but after this gave a rare calming on the mind. There's so much power in that you've said there, Alex. There's so much of you taking the initiative to do something that you want to do, following your thought processes, your needs and your wants, and kind of giving an opportunity to forget the restrictions that you're living under. I think it's so fantastic. I'm kind of jealous. I wish I hadn't missed out on that meteor shower, but next time I've got a plan I can follow. I've got a recipe there. Thank you. So yeah, we can take time to tune in with ourselves, express and healthily vent our negative feelings so we can empty our mind of worry before the day starts. There's nothing worse at the moment than waking up in the morning and the first thing I do is just start working. I just think, oh, I might as well get on with some emails first thing, because immediately I'm not a person. I'm a computer operator. I'm just, out there doing stuff for other people. And of course, yes, rest. But can we rest in nature like so many of you are finding time to do? Remember, when you're noticing your mind feeling really full and really busy, that's information. When you notice your mental health suffering, don't damn yourself for it. It's information that you need to go and find some of that rest. And if you can do that in nature, all the better. And then how do you make sense of it all? When problems seem really big, how can you break them down to size? Yes, sharing them with other people is a great way of doing that. Other people have a tendency to be able to see stuff from other perspectives that we can't. I know when my mental health is suffering, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can only see things one way, usually in quite an angry, frustrated way, or tearful. I'm upset about something. I can only see it from this one direction. And by sharing it with other people, I get to see it from other angles. But also journaling. I've spoken to a lot of people that have taken up journaling before bed. If you get into a good routine, here's that favorite word again, routine. If you get into a good routine of being able to, I don't know, an hour before you want to get into bed and start falling asleep, getting a piece of paper, writing down the things that are bothering you, that are stuck in your head, putting them into a list can be really, really useful. And this is this idea of what we need for our health and well-being, right? And I shared this in our last month's webinar, so this is more for the people that weren't there. But I know as a human being, I can care for myself better when I have a routine, when my brain can relax and it knows what's coming next. Think back to when you used to have your regular commute to work. How often would you get to work and you didn't even know how you got there? Your brain wasn't even engaged in the process. That's beautiful. That means my animal brain isn't scanning for danger. It's not trying to treat everything as life or death and keep me alive. All it's doing is just trusting me and trusting that I know what's coming next. With the loss of that, with the loss of these routines, we've lost a lot of our self-care habits and a lot of that relaxation from the anxiety of just living in the modern world. So the more of these we can get in our day, the better. If I can have a start time, an end time, regular breaks, meals and exercise, beautiful. Put them in my diary. The more of them I have, the more flexible and resilient I can be. If I suddenly need to change one of them, it's fine because I've got all the others kind of backing me up. Yeah? David's added here in the chat, I have the company of my dog sleeping under my desk while I'm working at home in my small office. What a great representation of nature in the modern world. He also gives me the benefit of wanting to go out into the garden each hour, which gets me out to hear all the birds in the trees behind our house while we play ball together. Beautiful. Another thing that people have found really useful at the moment is practicing gratitude, David. And I think that's probably one of those things that you could put on a list of things to be grateful for. The fact that my dog needs to go outside to use the bathroom every now and then, because it drags me with it and pulls me along. Brilliant. So I've made a list of some of the things that I found nature can be helpful for us, but as I say, please keep them coming in the chat. Yours are way better than mine are. I could never have come up with driving to the coast to see a meteor shower, so please keep yours coming. So time in green spaces. Research has shown that even just being in a green space reduces stress and anxiety and improves my resilience. Again, we are animals. When we're in our natural animal world environment, we feel much more at ease because our animal brain knows what to expect. My animal brain doesn't know what to do with 3 different computer monitors screaming at me and phones going off all the time. I've adjusted a little bit to be able to deal with it, but my animal brain can panic even when I just get an email from my boss. And we can do this in the city. I'm here quite central in London. I haven't got a lot of nature directly outside my window, but it's not far away. But a couple of you noticing this right at the beginning, the more time you spend alone in nature or when you're not with your computer or with all your phones, you're able to tune into the novelty, to noticing things that you've never noticed before. I mean, I have more graffiti around me than trees, but I noticed on my walk for a coffee today new bits of artwork up on the walls that I'd never noticed before. They could have been there for years, but I was head down looking at my phone walking to the tube station or something. So don't take for granted some of the things that you have locally as well, because even urban green spaces increase mood and satisfaction. And if I'm in nature, I am far more likely to be active. I don't know about you guys, but the last few times I've been to the woods, I've wanted to climb a tree. I haven't climbed a tree since I was a kid, really. But I want to do these things. My kind of natural instinct to play and explore kicks in when I get into nature, and I'm more likely to feel active. So those of you that are struggling, staying active and exercising at home, even just getting out into the park and going for a walk is a good start because it will kick in that you want to do something a bit more active. It's hard for me to feel active when I'm working in my bedroom. And then I can get more time to relax and practice mindfulness, open my senses to the natural surroundings, the smells. David mentioned here, hearing all the birds in the trees. And who was it that talked about kind of sleeping on the rocks? Probably not the most comfortable place to sleep, but what better place to be connected to nature? And then, yeah, like playing with your dog, interacting with wildlife, spending time with other creatures improves my feelings of well-being, compassion for others, and my ability to relax as well. Someone shared with me here privately, a few years ago, my mental health was really bad. I had a breakdown and my boss told me to take the day off work. Instead of going home, I went to Hastings and spent the entire day at the beach. It was incredible how much better it felt, how much better it made me feel just being there. That's funny. I went to Hastings quite recently. I haven't been there since I was a kid as well. Yeah. So we can take the opportunity to set our own priorities for these kind of things. I would much rather all of you spent one afternoon or evening or one weekend day in nature at the moment, rather than, as this person kindly shared, waiting till it gets to the point that we have a breakdown to give ourselves a day off. Don't forget, we need to take time off from work. Work is cool and important and it's useful, but it's not everything. If we're not taking the right time off work at the moment, we're not giving our brain and our body the proper opportunity it needs to rest at the moment. I'm a big advocate for making sure we take the right kind of leave at the moment. Other things you might need to schedule. You might need to schedule time in nature. You might need to schedule conversations at the moment. If conversations with colleagues or friends or family members aren't happening naturally at the moment, it's not your fault. A lot of the ways that human beings socially used to get into conversations aren't happening at the moment. And I've shared this kind of point of view before, but I find it really important. I don't know why I do this, and I've experienced others doing it as well. But when something's going bad for me, the first person I blame is myself. When I'm feeling lonely, the first person I look at is me and think, what's wrong with me? Why do people not want to talk to me or spend time with me? Instead of thinking of that loneliness as just information that my needs aren't being met, and I have the power to go out and meet those needs and schedule calls with friends and family. My chores, my house, my flat, my whatever I live in, if it's untidy, or if I've got kind of jobs at home hanging over me, it will feel much more harder to feel positive. Because as soon as I finish any piece of work, especially if I'm working from home, like many of you still are, as soon as I finish any piece of work, that, I don't know, I'm going to use my example here because I've got some DIY hanging over me. Those coat hooks by the door aren't going to fix themselves. Yeah. And every time I finish a piece of work, that can play on my mind. We need to have creative time as well. So many of you using examples of how to be creative in nature, for photographing, drawing, things like that. The reason creativity is really important for us at the moment is because it helps us feel much more satisfied. It also engages all the areas of my brain. Like I say, I can completely switch off, stick a series on the TV and not think of anything for hours. The problem is the TV is doing all the work for me. My brain doesn't have to do anything. How many of you have found yourself trying to watch TV recently, but actually you're looking at your phone and the TV's just on in the background? Yeah, it's because those TV shows aren't actually engaging all of your parts of your brain that are needed to be engaged. So creative time away from screens, even just going for a walk and leaving your phone behind, is creative, because your brain has to do stuff. It has to invent things to think of, and you get a chance to notice some of these new things around you, like I was saying. And then, yeah, you might need to schedule some time for reflection, to look at yourself. What are you missing the most? What are your needs and wants that aren't being met? And the way that I've shared to do this is what I call, unhelpfully, the crowbar method, right? I am not going to get you to put an hour of well-being in every day, but how about 5 minutes? How about looking at your diary for tomorrow and putting 5 or 10 minutes into your diary where you're going to close your laptop, turn your phones off, and just step away from the desk for a little bit. Maybe even just lay down or lay down on the ground and just spend some time tuning into your brain and your body and working out what your needs are. The more often we do this, the less anxiety we experience generally. Because the more time I'm spending tuning into myself and listening to my needs, the less my brain has to panic that I'm not in control, that I don't know how to look after myself. Yeah? A couple of people saying I've gone a bit robotic. I think that's just my voice anyway. But no, unfortunately, the connection to WebEx is based on your connection. So I think you might want to reset something. You can always leave and rejoin. So yeah, the more you focus on what is hard for you, the more that your needs will become apparent. I know it's so easy to get into the kind of tactics of escaping our negative thoughts and feelings, but one at a time, one day at a time, just try and pay attention to them, share them if you can, and meet your needs if possible. And I'll continue to share this slide because it's my favorite one. I know these mental traps are really easy to fall into, because even though I present these in almost every one of my presentations, I still find myself caught in these. So this is really just a reminder. If you're noticing yourself going down any of these routes, don't blame yourself. It's natural. The world has changed and it's forcing our body and our brain to do different things. So we're getting stuck in these kind of loops, just like we're stuck in our houses, many of us. Our brains are also stuck in these little loops doing the same thought process over and over again. The more that we share, the more that we spend time tuning into ourselves, the less these will happen. Yeah, we can get stuck worrying about things we can't control, comparing ourselves to other people. I've had this so often with clients and groups at the moment, is people saying, yeah, I'm struggling, but people have got it worse than me. Okay, so just because people have got it worse than you, does that mean you shouldn't look after yourself? Just because people, I mean, there are millions, billions of people in the world worse off than me. But if I stop caring for myself, that doesn't do anything to help them. It doesn't make their lives any easier or any better. I will always be able to compare myself to other people, see myself as negative and see other people as positive. I'm always going to be worse off than some people and better off than others. But none of those people can care for me like I can, by spending time paying attention to what it is I need. And and yeah, instead of just taking a break, take your break. This is my best tip for well-being. The most restful activity that suits you the most. And yeah, maybe throw these up in the chat if you've got any good examples of these restful activities you've found at the moment. The more people share with each other, the more we all get ideas. I had never thought of going out and driving to the coast and looking at a meteor shower, but it's all that my brain can think about wanting to do at the moment. Nabila, woodworking, beautiful. I haven't done woodworking since secondary school. I've got all that I need to do woodwork. I've got, some tools. Graham, walking my dog, beautiful. Yeah, spending some of that time, that restful thing. Anytime your body and your brain is giving you this signal that things aren't right, take a break, and take a break that suits you. Katie says, I take a cuppa into the conservatory and watch the birds on my bird feeder. That's a very nice mindful activity. Natty says cloud gazing, beautiful. I haven't done that since I was a kid either. David says running. Yeah, something really physical can be an activity that so many of us are suited to, which is absolutely fantastic. And look, when I mean taking a break here, this is where, again, that human element of judging ourselves comes into it. So many times recently, I've heard about this idea of taking a break, and I've thought, when? When am I going to take a break? How? It's impossible. So, just a reminder of that crowbar technique. 5 or 10 minutes in your diary, start off doing nothing. It's much easier for me to find 5 or 10 minutes in my day to do nothing than it is to try and cram an hour of woodworking in. And then over time, can I stretch that 5 or 10 minutes out day by day till it's enough space for me to fit something well-being related in? Open water swimming. Oh, Melissa, I remember you talking about that last month. Under a full moon, even better. Something a bit magical about that by the sounds of it. Matt says, working on my own projects to keep my brain busy and stop overthinking, control the thoughts wandering into negativity. Fantastic. So instead of wasting that energy on negative thought processes, using your energy productively on your own projects. Clara said, spending time sitting on my balcony, running my hands through pots of lavender and herbs to get a hint of fragrance. Brilliant. Maddie says, sewing or knitting, make my own tea blends. Oh, that sounds nice. Painting. Melissa's saying these are all beautiful. Yeah, they are. This is why I invite so many people along. You all do the job for me. But in a bit of a response to what Matt was saying here about working on your own projects, keep learning, stay creative, keep doing new things. Have a look at the chat now. Are there some things here that you think might suit you? Remember, it's the new things that we do that will get us through this new and changing time. Yeah. Olivia said, do you have any tips on motivation to get out there in bad weather? I really struggle as someone who's originally from South America. Well, when I start having those thoughts about, oh, the weather's bad, I shouldn't go outside, I often then try and respond with the thought, okay, well, what do I want to do when I'm outside? Am I trying to run around naked outside? Then yeah, maybe I should wait for some good weather. But if I'm just going out to get a coffee like I did today, I put some old boots on that I don't care about and took an umbrella with me. I wore some clothes that I don't mind getting wet and off I go. You can kind of get enjoyment out of preparing for these things. But if the motivation is that you're looking for better weather, it's going to be hard to come by sometimes, wherever you are in the world. I would also start thinking about, yeah, making sure that the activities are planned. If it's planned in my diary that that's what I'm doing, and that's where I'm going to get my nature and my well-being, I won't mind what weather it is. If I'm trying to do it on the spur of the moment and I'm looking for excuses, sure, the weather's always a good excuse here in the UK. We can use that to not do anything we want to. Yeah, so my recommendation would just be try and schedule it in your diary. It becomes a little bit harder to involve, and invite other people with you. Arrange to do something with other people in nature. Again, human beings are much better focused when we think we're helping someone else out. Joanne says, get a dog. Yeah, that'll force you to get outside. David says, watch the whole 6 series of Line of Duty over a month. That's nice and restful. John says, the old Scandinavian saying, there is no bad weather, just bad clothing. I haven't heard that one before. I like that a lot. Someone says, get some good waterproofs and go for a walk anyway. Bree says, I hike a lot and I always think it's not the wrong weather, it's the wrong clothes. I'll be reminding myself of this when hiking out in the Lake District next week. Good luck. We're going to have a lot of rain next week. Olivia says, I have 2 dogs, 2 or 3 walks a day every day. They help. Embrace the weather you find yourself in, Matt says. Beautiful. Yeah, really good thing. I can't change the weather. Why would I worry about trying to change the weather when it's not in my control? I can change how I feel about it. Sometimes walking about in the rain is more peaceful. There are less people about. Yeah. So many great tips from you all here. That's why I'm reading them all out. I love them. Olivia, I always just try and ask someone to come with me or meet me somewhere. I think about how nice the rain will sound when it hits my umbrella. I wear wellies so I know that I can jump into puddles. You see, we're connecting with that natural playfulness there again. Or I take my phone or a camera along with me and take some nice rainy photos. Even just trying to cook a new recipe can feel creative. A new recipe is a fantastically creative thing, Annie. Really good idea. Yeah, my brain has to really engage if I'm trying to do that. Um, Someone else said, I think feeling the freshness of the weather can be helpful and not worrying about getting my hair wet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, a few of us haven't had haircuts for quite a while, so my hair probably looks better wet than it does when I try and style it. So yeah, the new stuff that we do will help us feel connected to the world, adaptable and able to change. Remember, if I'm doing something new, I'm training my brain that I can do new things. All of a sudden, this brain doesn't have to worry about the world changing because it trusts that I can change along with it. Lucy said the best way to stick to exercise outside is to plan to meet someone whilst doing it. Then you will not cancel because you will not want to let anyone down. Yeah, which brings me on to my favorite topic, kindness and compassion. We talked about this one before. Kindness to others is beautiful. Human beings are built for it. We're built as social animals that try and please other people so that we can stay part of the tribe. It's hardwired into our brain. Don't forget about that kindness to yourself. So many times that first hit of emotion that we're feeling at the moment is a negative one towards ourselves. I'm going to end today with between 10 and 20 emails or messages that I had that I want to get back to that I didn't have time to. I need to be able to be kind to myself and let those go. Those aren't personal messages from friends and family members. They're lovely messages, sure, and nice creative ones, but it's about my work. And if I've decided to switch off from work, I need to allow myself to switch off from it as well. Again, can you find time to acknowledge what's difficult for you and what you need? So I'm acknowledging what's difficult for me is feeling like I'm letting other people down. But what I need is to be able to care for myself so that I can continue to support other people for my career. So that kindness from ourselves is a really important thing to start with. And it's a really important antidote to that anxiety again. Just like creativity, I'm training my brain to say, I know what I need and I can give it to myself. And yeah, give yourself permission to enjoy things. That negative comparison. There are places in the world right now where life is incredibly hard, 4 million times harder than it is for me where I am right now. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't enjoy my life. It doesn't mean I shouldn't, none of those people in those difficult situations wish me not to enjoy my life for their sake. You're allowed to enjoy things even in difficult and sticky times. And then finally, my favorite tools and tips are always about sleep. I'm never going to change this slide. It's going to stay in every one of my presentations that I get an opportunity to put it into. So many of us are struggling with sleep, and none of this is of any use if I'm not well rested. In fact, if you're not well rested, you're probably not enjoying what I'm saying right now because you're frustrated, you've had enough, you've heard my voice for long enough, and you want to leave. Go anytime you like, but before you go, take a look at these sleep tips. They are absolutely vital. We need to get kind of hardwired into our brain and body that we know how to care for our sleep. And we can do that by doing a few things at the start of the day. So when you get up in the morning, eat breakfast and have something to drink quickly, pretty soon. If you're someone that can't eat a big breakfast, something small, a handful of granola, something silly like that. Something to tell my dumb animal brain that food's okay today. I've got food. Same with water. Nice, well hydrated drink. And then yeah, there's a few more tools and tips here. And like I said, I'll share the slides at the end if you want any of them in more detail. But we'll have plenty of time for the questions at the end of this. And if you've got any particular questions about sleep, if you're struggling about sleep, we can look at these in a bit more detail. I want to leave plenty of time for questions because I know we'll have quite a few. And remember, the questions don't have to be related to nature and well-being. They can be anything to do with mental health, anything to do with well-being and the way things are going at the moment. I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, John's asked an important question. How many of my many coffees is 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine? Uh, how long's a piece of string, John? They kind of change all the time depending on how you make them, especially if you're making them at home. I tend to make mine a bit extra strong when I'm making it at home. 200 to 300 milligrams is probably 2 to 3 cups. Most people's cups of coffee is between 75 and 125 milligrams of caffeine. One thing I will say, if you're trying to cut down on caffeine, switch to a darker roast coffee. The darker the roast, the less the caffeine usually, because it's been cooked more, so less of the caffeine in it. For those of you that are members of CiC, don't forget that you can look at all of our online EAP services at wellonline.co.uk. You'll find the best information you can about us there, or just get in touch with us by email, assist@cicwellbeing.com. Cool. So for those of you that are watching on the recording on YouTube, I'm going to stop the recording in a minute and we're going to have some question and answer sessions. If you'd like to take part in one of those in the future, try and come along to one of these live. I turned the recording off just so people can ask a few more kind of private or personal questions. Without further ado, we'll move on to a bit of a Q&A. Please type them out in the chat. Stick your hand up if you want to speak out loud. I can invite you to unmute yourself. Feel free to be on camera or off, whichever you prefer. But we don't need these slides up at the moment, and we can stop our recording. Thanks.